Gerald, Ginger Gerald Stitcher. Typically I cross stitch. Today I knit. So it's Thursday, March 29th, and I'm here for my update and long overdue homework report. So Caroline can't yell at me for not, smack me with a roller because I don't have my homework done on time. So, not a whole lot to tell you about. I haven't been really knitting a whole lot. If you watch my cross stitch updates, you really would know why. I've been kind of designing and being more creative on that end with my cross stitch, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to knit. I have been. We'll get into it. So first, I want to thank Caroline, and I think we all need to thank Caroline if we are learning to knit with her because she is doing an amazing job with the tutorials that she's putting out, and it's taking a lot of time and effort. So thank you, Caroline. And if you're not following Caroline, you should go check her out, especially if you're interested in learning how to knit. She has wonderful, easy to follow tutorials for anybody to learn how to knit. I've heard many friends and people come on social media come to me and say, they've tried knitting before and they couldn't figure it out, and they followed her videos and voila, they know how to knit. And other knitters. So she's a wonderful teacher. So go check out her videos. If you're interested in her cross stitch videos, go check her out. She's also a member of Fiber Friends, the Fiber Friends podcast, which is a knitting group of three friends: Caroline, Adrian, and Louise. So let's get into it. So I have some finishes. Yes, I have finishes. Caroline, I have finishes, and you don't. Actually, I'm joking, but you usually don't. I've been going kind of crazy with the dishcloths, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen these already. I have hairs all over them. Oh, I didn't tie that in very well. What's going on here? Gotta figure that one out. What's going on? So anyways, what is going on there? I have dishcloths. I haven't used any of them, but I have dishcloths. So I think I've done, since the last time I've seen you for a knitting update, I've finished 3 more. I know I finished the yellow one. I think that's the yellow one I finished. Or was it that one? Maybe it was that one. I don't know. They all look about the same now. So I finished this red one. I finished this gray one. Was it this gray one? No. Was it that gray one? Must have been that gray one. Had to be that gray one. Yeah. This gray one. No, that gray one was already finished. That's the one that I messed up on in the last episode. And I did a blue one. Which blue one did I do? It was this blue one. This is the one I finished. So. And this is the pattern that Louise provided, the super simple diamond dishcloth. It's on Ravelry under her woolly. It's linked on my other videos. You'll just have to go check it out. Okay, so those are my dishcloths. Very happy with those. Don't know if I'll ever use them. I know everyone says you got to use them. So, dishcloths. Then, so that's all my finishes. Then I worked a couple days last week. I had snow days. So Thursday I woke up and I felt like knitting. So I wanted to remember I started a scarf And I was doing the scarf in the, let's see if I can get this up here. Not that that's what I paid, but you know, whatever. I started the scarf in the Vanna's Choice Lion brand. Yes, it's acrylic. No, I don't care. And this is a worsted weight acrylic 3-color yarn. Very much my colors. Love those colors. Gray, gold, copper. I would even say that's like gold, silver, and bronzy, but it's really like gold, gray, and coppery. And I finished a ball. So I have 4 of these balls. I'm not going to do all that for the entire scarf. And I'm doing a simple free pattern that I found on Ravelry. It's a basic rib pattern. So there's the ribbing. And there's the scarf so far. I'm really liking that. Just a nice way to practice my purl and knit stitch. So, and actually I'm kind of glad I did this first because then I was ready for my homework. And in a way, this was kind of hard. Well, no, I'm not going to say that because that's not true. So, yeah, what's going on here? I'm messing everything up now. So, there is my scarf. Okie dokie. And my last project is my homework. Now, let's talk about my homework. So on Friday, last Friday, instead of stitching for the stitch in, I decided I would knit. And I followed Caroline's tutorials on how to start stitching and start knitting in the round. You know, I casted on my stitches for the cast on. I was like, okay, that's fine. Took some time, not that big of a deal. It took me like 3 times to get the cast on because of course I didn't leave a long enough tail. And so I had to pull it all off and start over again. Then I left like a tail this long, but whatever. I could just cut it off because I was like, I don't care. I have 4 of these balls because, and I'm using Wool of the Andes tweed from Knit Picks, and this is in Forest Heather. A really nice heathery green color. It's not my favorite yarn that I've worked on already, but it's a nice practice yarn. Anyways, so finally, and let me tell you, after I worked on this for 3 hours on Friday, trying to get started and going. So I think it took me 3 times to get the cast on, the 88, I think it's like 88 stitch. I'm not even sure, whatever it is. And then I start the stitching in the round and I'm doing fine. And then I'm starting into the ribbing. And then don't you know, I'm on a roll and I'm doing well. And then don't you know, in the very first round, I drop a stitch. And I'm sorry, there's no way for me to go back from dropping a stitch. Maybe professionals that have been knitting for years can do that. Maybe they can, I don't even know. But yeah, I dropped a stitch, so guess what? I yank it all off, and I'm getting frustrated. I'm messaging Caroline in like total frustration. This is like 3 hours into trying to get this started, and it's like, I get it. It's all new to me, but at the same time, I'm a perfectionist and I'm a person who wants to get things done right the first time. And probably I should have just put it away, but then at that point, and then started the next day. But at that point, I was to the point where I am not letting it go until I get 3 rows of rib stitch into this thing before I go to bed. So I finally, like an hour later, get my first row of rib in, and we're good to go. And then I'm stitching, and then I get my 3 rows in, and I put it away, and I go to bed. And then I get up the next day, and I start working on it some more. And so here it is, and it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. And ignore the tails. We'll talk about that again here in a little bit. That's another story. So there is my ribbing so far. I am going to do the longer rib so I can have the fold over brim. So I'm probably going to do like a 5-inch rib. So I'm about halfway there. I think this is 2 inches of rib. So I'm stitching and stitching and stitching. I'm sorry, knitting and knitting and knitting. And then randomly, I think I added an extra knit in and an extra stitch in one of the rows. So, and I was able to fix that easily. I just dropped it because I just, I added an extra loop in. No big deal. So I decided to count just to make sure I have the proper amount of stitches. And I don't. Somehow, I added 2. And I didn't know how. Because looking at it, you wouldn't be able to tell where I added the stitches because the ribs are good. I mean, the ribs are straight, they're not wonky. You can't find where I added stitches in somewhere. So then I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking, and look, in the first row, added a stitch. A little bit down the row, look again, I added a stitch. So now my hat's going to be 2 stitches wider, which is good because I was worried it wasn't even going to fit. So maybe those extra 2 stitches are going to help it fit my ginormous melon head. So anyways, there's the start of my hat. So then I'm stitching and I'm stitching. Oh, so the first night I'm stitching. You're just gonna have to ignore my terminology here. I'm knitting and knitting and knitting, and this is fairly early on. And I start yanking on my tail here as I'm pulling out the ball, and it's not coming and it's not coming. And I'm like, well, what the heck's going on? And then all of a sudden I have this ginormous ball come out. So I messaged Caroline and I sent her a picture, and she's like, oh yeah, we call that yarn vomit or something. I'm like, oh, that's nice. So I'm like trying to untangle it and untangle it, and there's just no way of getting it done. So what do? I go and I snip, snip, snip. And thankfully, because of this, I know how to add in new strands of yarn. So I tell Caroline, she's like, no, you didn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Because look, I cut it out and I still can't get it untangled. Somebody want to do that for me? I have 4 balls. I really don't care at this point. I cannot get this untangled. I gave up. I was like, this hat is going to be the ruination of me. But now it's started. So hopefully karma will stay away from me and keep me on the good side. So there's my hat. Yes, I added it in. So now I have more tails I have to weave in at some point later. I don't care. That's easy. I can handle that. So, my hat. It's a lesson. We learn. We always learn from mistakes. I wouldn't even call that a mistake. It's life, right? So, those are my projects in progress. And now, the only other thing I have is I bought 2 balls of yarn. So I have been learning, one of my friends, Yvonne, the Night Owl Stitcher, who is also a cross stitcher, has been learning how to knit with me. She's also one of those who tried knitting before and couldn't figure it out. And so she went to Hobby Lobby and said that the Hobby Lobby 100% cotton is so soft. So of course, what do I have to go do? When I'm at Hobby Lobby, I have to go look at the Hobby Lobby yarn, and guess what? It's so soft. So I buy some yarn. Because, I need more dishcloth yarn for dishcloths that I'm never going to use. So I bought, I don't even know if these have names. Oh, this is teal. And this is, their yarn is called I Love This Cotton. Super soft, super savings. And this is 100% cotton. 153 yards, 85 grams. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we talk grams. Grams and meters, right? 85 grams, 140 meters. So, teal, which I didn't know that was teal. Because, I'm wonderful with my colors. To me, oh, look at the nice blue yarn. Isn't that nice blue yarn? And oh, look at this lovely yellow yarn, yellow and blue yarn. Oh, there's a little white in there too. No, this is, oh, Paris in June. Paris in June. How about that? Not too much light. But then if I turn the light off, it's going to be too yellowy. Yep. Paris in June. There we go. See? Yellow, white, blue. But now you look and I'm like, well, isn't that teal? So maybe that's teal. I also feel like I'm a bad knitting podcaster because I don't have a giant wall of yarn protruding out from cubbies behind me. But that's never going to happen. Not because I won't have that much yarn, but because I would never, ever, ever be able to handle having a giant wall of cubbies in my house. Because that would just be way too much dusting. So, but if you watch every other podcaster, they all have a giant wall of IKEA cubbies with yarn. So subscribe to me if you want. If you don't, because I don't have a giant wall of yarn cubbies, then okay. So y'all have a wonderful day. Enjoy your stitching. Go check out Caroline if you want to knit. I'm looking forward to finishing up this hat so I can get rid of this lovely green vomity yarn. So